Saturday, 8 o'clock on ABC. It's the Louisville Cards versus the FSU Noles, Mason. It's the ACC Championship game at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina, heart of the ACC conference there. FSU is a 2.5-point favorite, slimmest margin of all of the conference championship games. Over-under is set at a low 48.5. Thank you so much for tuning in to the First and Long College Football Show. I'm Marcus. That's Mason. We have a weekly college football show here at First and Long, and we want you to be part of it. So to do that, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. A bunch of you Louisville fans have already done that. And I know that you had a tough loss last week, but this season ain't over. Greatness is still on the horizon, and hopefully for you, by Saturday, greatness will be on the horizon behind you to win the ACC. FSU, on the other hand, has other plans, don't they? They are undefeated this season and are on their backup quarterback, as Jordan Travis, everybody knows at this point, has went down with an absolutely gruesome leg injury. And I hope he's doing well. Saw him on TV this past week, Florida State and Florida, in the press box. I wish him the best of wishes and hate that for Florida State fans because I know they were fired up to see Jordan Travis get into the postseason. But nonetheless, you still made it. Jordan Travis did his job. He helped lead this team to where they needed to be. As I said, please subscribe and like the video and leave us your score prediction in the comment section. We'd love to see that and really do appreciate it. Let's dive in to this matchup and let's check out, some of the highlights and lowlights of this team and statistically where each of these teams are. We'll start with the Florida State Seminoles. Offensively, 419.5 yards per game. That's 35th in the country. 156.2 rush yards per game. That's 68th in the country. Pass yards per game, 26th in the country at 263.2. And points per game, 38.8. Now, I want you all to take those stats with a grain of salt because we now have a new quarterback at Rodemaker. Last week, he went 12 of 25, 134 yards, no interceptions, but no touchdowns as Florida State got the victory over Florida. This offense is clearly going to look different without their leader, Jordan Travis, but it will be coupled with a pretty good defense. Let's go through some of those numbers. 295.9 yards per game given up. That's 18th in the country. 140.2 yards per game allowed rushing. That's 46th. They're 9th in the country, though, at pass yards per game allowed at 155.8. And points per game, 16.8 allowed. That is good for the 11th best scoring defense in the country. This team obviously was led by Jordan Travis, as we said, but Tate Rodemaker has taken over. He's got 510 yards for the year. And obviously we've talked about the awesome additions that this team has made through the transfer portal with Keon Coleman, 639 yards receiving. Johnny Wilson is the big possession wide receiver that you throw your 50-50 balls to, about 6'7", bad dude. And Jaheim Bell, the transfer from South Carolina, also working as a receiver in that offense, tight end, kind of a hybrid player. And they even line him up in the backfield at times, which I think is very, very productive. Let's look at the Louisville Cardinals coming off of a very, very disappointing defeat. The fans were so jacked up to play Kentucky. They wanted to take down Big Blue so bad, and it didn't happen this time. 38-31, Kentucky ends up winning on a last-minute run by Ray Davis Sr. Absolute heart-crushing defeat at home. The Louisville fans and Jack Harlow were turned up, and Ray Davis hit him with the L's down, and that seems to be something that's trending all over the internet. And I know Louisville fans hate that, but I'm telling you, Louisville fans, you got everything you want right here in front of you. Let's go through some of the numbers of this Brohm team. And Brohm, by the way, should absolutely be in the discussion for Coach of the Year. Absolutely, no doubt about that. Offensively, 426 yards per game. That's 29th in the country. Rush yards per game, 184.7. That's 33rd. Pass yards per game, 45th at 241. And points per game, 33, which is 32nd in the country. So, hey, they're a very serviceable offense, top 30 in pretty much everything. Defensively, we'll switch over to that side of the ball. 298 yards per game allowed. That's 19th in the country. 96.8 yards rushing per game allowed. That's 12th in the country. Actually did a good job against Kentucky last week against the rush. Just gave up some big plays, and it really, really cost them. Pass yards per game, 201.2. That's 47th in the country. And points per game, defensively, 20 allowed per game. That's 25th in the country for scoring defense there. This team is ran by Jack Plummer, a transfer quarterback. He's got 2,952 yards, had a very successful season this year. The Russian leader, Jawar Jordan, I've heard has been a little bit banged up, as everybody is at this point of the year, but he's got 1,076 yards. But this is a two-headed Russian monster, as Isaac Guarendo, 639 yards for the season. They've been a nice 1-2 punch at running back for the Cards. Jamari Thrash, 801 receiving yards, although been a little more quiet as of recently, been battling some injuries. Chris Bell has kind of stepped up in the past couple weeks, as well as Kevin Coleman Jr. at wide receiver. Those are kind of your main targets for this team. Mason, with both of these teams undressed, give us your take. How do you think the Cards can win this game? What do the Florida State Seminoles need to do to take care of those said Cards?
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. We saw this line move, so it was at 6 points. Florida State was favored up until Jordan Travis went out with an injury, right? And now you're saying that they're only a 2.5 point favorite. But I really like what I saw from Rodemaker last week. He had a pretty bad first half, I thought. But the second half, he made some really nice throws. So I do think that he should be able to make some good throws in this game as well. Depending on how comfortable he is in this game. So, early on, I lean Louisville. And for some reason, I have like a gut feeling that Louisville is going to be able to pull this out. But when I look at it on paper and when I think about it, my head tells me that Florida State should win this easily. Louisville's worst aspect on defense is their passing game and their passing defense, and that's what Florida State likes to do most. They've got the elite wide receivers and Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson and Jaheim Bell, who can go and go out and get it. And I think that Rodemaker made some impressive throws that I think he's going to be able to do it over the top. I don't think that this will be a very high scoring game, especially in that first quarter. But I think eventually Rodemaker will settle, and he's gonna lead Florida State to victory. I do think, though, if Louisville can get the running game going, I think that would pose some real issues for Florida State. Looking at it, Florida State against the run, they are 48th, giving up 140 yards per game. That's a pretty good bit of yards, 3.9 yards per rush. But against the pass, they've been pretty good, and that's where Louisville has struggled. So I think that there's an area that they can attack at least is Louisville running the football against Florida State. But that they got to do a whole lot of rushing to be able to beat this team. I think that if Rodemaker is able to play like he did in that second half against Florida, I think that's the big catalyst, right? He's sort of the keystone species of this game, if you will, and I think that he is going to dictate how this game goes and who wins this game. So, but I think that the experience, even though it's not in-game experience, he's kind of an older guy who's been in the system for a long time. I think that will prevail. I think that Florida State's going to be able to pull this one out. As far as a score prediction, I'm going to say 23-20. Florida State wins over Louisville. I think it's a close game. Another one that Florida State comes from behind. We've seen it over and over again this year. It's kind of become their identity, but they'll come from behind and kind of win it, midway through the fourth quarter and secure the win that way. Close game, but I like Florida State in this one.
Well, I'm going to jump on the other side of the fence. I was on the Cards last week,
Mhm.
and they let me down. And they followed the same recipe that they did in the loss against Pitt, and it seems like a trend. If Louisville can protect the football in this game, I think they can win this sucker outright.
Yeah.
They have got to run the ball effectively, though. That's going to be a key to this football game. But let's talk about Florida State for a minute. I've seen Florida State several times this year line up with Jaheim Bell and Trey Benson in the backfield at the same time. I didn't see that enough last week. And if Florida wasn't such a undisciplined football team, I think Florida could have won that football game last week. I really do. And and that's part of the game. Florida, like I said, they're very undisciplined. But they're not a good football team at all, man. I mean, 5-7 for the year. Gave Florida State everything that they wanted. I think Rodemaker was pretty nervous at the beginning of that game, though, and I think he will settle down a bit. But I just didn't see what I thought I was going to see out of this offense. I thought Rodemaker was going to be able to run the football in this offense. I really thought that was going to be more of the game plan. Maybe they're holding that back for this week.
Or
Trying to make
they can't afford to have him hurt.
Well, sure. I get it. You don't want what's his name? Glenn, Brock Glenn.
Brock Glenn. That just sounds like a backup, like third string quarterback name.
Yeah, definitely going to be selling insurance at the State Farm Brock Glenn division. But no, I mean, at some point you got to let it all hang out. I mean, what are you got to try to win this ACC championship game. So I think they'll probably run them a little bit more because what are you? I mean, at this point, what are you protecting yourself from? You got to go all out and try to win this thing. Otherwise, you're not getting in the playoff anyway. Yeah. So I think we'll probably see some wrinkles that we didn't see last week from the Florida State offense with Rodemaker. I would like to have seen Florida State run the ball a little more effectively, although, that is what ended up winning them the game and ultimately giving them a 10-0 edge in the fourth quarter where they beat the Florida Gators. That was the difference in the football game. But I think Jawar Jordan is going to be good to go for this game. I think that this Louisville Cardinals team is going to be able to stop the run and run the football in this game. I don't think they want to get Jack Plummer sitting back in the pocket waiting on this Florida State defense because they will get after the quarterback. This is a defense that revolves around getting to the quarterback with Jared Verse. Very, very good front seven there. But I think whenever Louisville, if they can stay in front of the chains and have short third downs where, they keep the defense on their heels, they don't know if they're running or passing, that's whenever this team is most effective. Brohm has built a very efficient football team. They everything relies on something else on this team. Very complimentary, very well-rounded. Not just amazing at one thing, but pretty good at everything. I feel like Kentucky was a beneficiary, obviously, of 3 turnovers last week, and I feel like that's probably why this number is a little bit down on Louisville. I think, you can't help but have, a perception of this team after what you just saw last week. And that's kind of what I think Vegas is betting on here. I think this game is more of a pick 'em, in my opinion. I think that makes a lot more sense. But if you're giving me +2.5, I'm taking Louisville. I'm going to take those points +2.5. I think this is going to be a really good football game. And I think it's going to be something like 30-27, or 27-24. I don't think this one is going to be, crazy high scoring or anything. I think that over, I think the over on a low number of 48.5 would probably be good because I think both teams will give up some yardage in this one. But give me Louisville +2.5. I'm riding the Brohm and the Plummer train one more time this season. Let's go Cards. Come on, make me some money.